Shalom. I like to say all praise is due unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash, double honor to apostles of Great Millstone. Peace and blessing to the elect. My name is Kanawak from Great Millstone, Toronto. And it's gonna be I'm gonna be going into this book called The Negroes. It's called The Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isles by Dr. John L. Johnson. I don't know if it's a Jake or what, but like more than likely he's a Johnson. And very good book. I got this book from one of the brothers in our camp, Howard. Very good information, and I'm gonna bring out a couple of scriptures and bring out these facts. The Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isles. Very good book. I always wanted to get it, but I borrowed it from one of the brothers. Very good book, man. So let's get page 18. So this is page 18, The Negro Rulers of the British Isles, called James Stewart the Sixth, or the First, right, of Scotland and England. James Stewart the Sixth / the First, the cousin of Elizabeth the First, became king of the Scotland and England, and was succeeded by his son Charles the First, who fathered Charles the Second. Right, so during the Dark Ages, our people were in high position. There were kings, there were so-called queens, counts, nobles, knights, and they were in high position, our people. All right, so let's get that. I could get it. 1 second. So let's get it. Get Revelation. So like yeah. Let's get Revelation 20. Revelation 20. Revelation 20 and 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. So the angel is Yahushai. He has the keys, to these kingdoms. He's the Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. So he has the keys, right? And the great chain in his hand, right? And the bottomless pit is known as Europe, right? And basically, the pagan Roman Empire fell, and then the so-called Holy Roman Empire rose to power. Right, when Apostle Hari goes into the 5 good Caesars, and then Septimius Severus, and then Constantine the Great. I believe 333 AD. They sent up the Council of Nicaea. Shalom, Yabashim Shabakatha, Shalom. Yeah, they set up the Council of Nicaea of and basically they were in power. And he laid hold on the dragon, the old serpent, which is called the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. So when Jacob rose to power, when the Israelites rose to power during in the Middle Ages, or they call it the Dark Ages, which the Israelites were ruling, the Jacobites, they were ruling all throughout Europe and the world, Asia, and they were living very luxurious. And he laid hold on and bound him 1,000 years. So basically, they're in power. Basically, we were in power for over 1,000 years, and then they fell during like the 1300s. Were known as the Black Plague, because Jake started mixing up, like with these Edomites, and basically they died of the Black Plague. And then 1453, the Byzantine Empire fell, and then the Ottoman Empire came up to power, 1453, and then 1492, Spain, where basically the last more stronghold was known as Granada, right? And then they were driven out. They had to go into Morocco. They had to go exile. Some that went into Europe, to France, Amsterdam, but basically that the Moors, they fell during that time. And then 1492 is when like the Borgia family, they rose up to power. The Borgia family rose to power, and Pope Alexander the Sixth of Rome, he rose to power. Then he commissioned his son, known as Cesare Borgia, right? And he used his son, the painter Leo, like Michelangelo. He used his son Michelangelo to basically he was commissioned, and used his son to paint his son as the anointed, known as Jesus or whatever. They used him. And then and that's why we have that whole that Renaissance art, right? No, that's what that whole thing goes back to. Michelangelo. And cast him to the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nation no more, till 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed of the season. And this is the season that they're in. This is the little season that they came in. And 1453, 1492. Basically when the Edomites started to come to power. Right, but you still had Jake that was still in power throughout Europe, right? Throughout, as kings and queens. But so I'm going to be going into this too. It has a lot of good information. Yeah, Job 9:24. The earth is given to the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? And that's what they did. With his whole Renaissance Christianity, his Renaissance art. He called it iconoclasm. Shalom. Shalom. Yeah, man. I got this book off of Howard, printer, GMS printer Howard. Very good book. But yeah, they covered the face of the judges there, right? Because everybody knew that the saints, that they're Israelites. That's why the Russians, the guy like Vladimir Putin, he basically brought out that as to who the saints are, that they're very dark skinned. But I'm going to continue with this book. So it says page 8, the Negro rulers of Scotland and the British Isles. James Stewart the sixth / the first, the cousin of Elizabeth the First, became King of Scotland and England, and was succeeded by his son Charles I, who fathered Charles II, a tall, curly mouth, dark skin, and curly hair man, known in England as the Black Boy. Right, so that's why in these books they called it the Swarthy. He was very dark, but he's known as the Black Boy. He's very dark skinned. Right, the boy said the boy Charles II grandmother was Mary Queen of Scots, who was a dark olive skinned woman. Right, so she was very dark. Charles Charles appeared Charles' appearance was opposite of an Englishman. He was black skinned, French mother, Henriette. It says the Stuarts were very dark skinned, right? So the Stuart family, right? So like that's why a lot of us have English surnames. Yeah, I'm gonna get this one. First Maccabees 3:48, and laid open the book of the law wherein the heathen have sought to paint the likeness of their image. That's what they did. Right? It says the Stuarts were a dark skinned Negro, Pictish Scottish black people, whom the name Stuart was taken from the Old Norse word swart, right? Meaning black. That's why I think in Germany, I think somewhere in Europe, they call black people Swatza, right? So the Norse word, is swart, which means dark skin. The Stuart anglicized name James was originally called Hamish, Old Scottish Gaelic natural. Hamish is derived from the word ham, meaning black. Right? Basically, the word ham just means hot, come. That's what it means. So the Stewart's family, that's why some of our certain brothers might have the last name Stewart. I have an English last name. I'm a Reeves. But basically, a lot of us were already here in the New World. But let's read this. It says, let's read about this. Mary called him the little black boy's son after his birth. When he died, his brother James II slash the seventh succeeded him. James' daughter Mary II ruled England with her cousin and husband William the Third slash the second of England's believe the second following their father's death. Right, so this is the basically like they're ruling Scotland and England. It says following their death, James IP youngest sister Annie, a gay woman, which means gay just means happy, ruled England. She was succeeded by George I of Hanover, who was the German and Scottish descent. Right, so they were actually Germans, right, and Scottish descent, and they were all cousins, firstborn cousins, and yeah, his mother Sophia, right. So basically, Queen Sophia. Let's just show you a picture of her. She's very light skinned, and I believe like that whole lineage. It goes back to Queen Victoria. That whole lineage, right? So they were Jews, even though she's very fair. Well, she's like Queen Victoria. She's an Israelite. So Queen Charlotte. And also a very good TV series to watch if you brothers never watched it. It's called Queen Charlotte, Bridgerton story on Netflix. If you brothers never watch it, I suggest you watch it. But they show you, Queen Charlotte, that she's a light skinned black woman, and they show you King George III as a white guy, but he's actually he was just a light skinned, just a light skinned man. So this is how she would actually look. She's a red bone. This is how she actually look. This is Queen Charlotte. So if you watch that movie, Slovakia. Yeah, watch this movie on Netflix. Very good. Queen Charlotte, a Bridgerton story on Netflix, because we were in power, right? Going into even the late 1800s, going into 1900. But let's look at George the First, King George the Third, because they whitewashed his image, right? He was just a light skinned man. This is actually King George the Third of England. This is actually him. So Queen Charlotte Sophia, they had a marriage. They're basically cousins, firstborn cousins, right? And and that's how you had he had a son named as King George the Fourth. So it's his sacred Majesty George the Third, King of Britain or England. All right, that's why look at King George the Third. His coin, the coin of I think it's Barbados. Like this is King George the Third. His coin in the Barbados. Um, this is his coin. He had woolly hair. This is King George the Third. Right? It says this is actual penny. Because they say that King George was against slavery and stuff, but Jake, played a major role. Slavery. That's why it says, "My people become more wicked than the wicked." It says, I think James, they lay wait to, they trap men. Someone could find it. Well, I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue with this. So it says, King George's son George II succeeded him and was succeeded by his grandson George III, who married a black queen named Sophia Charlotte, who was descendant of Negro royal family of Portugal and Spain, and were originally called Iberian Ethiopia. Ethiopia just means bare-faced, so they would call it blackamoor, right? So they were very swarthy. They were dark. They're her lineage goes back to Jake, that was in rulership throughout Spain and Portugal, known as the Moors or the Blackamoors. It says the couple had 15 children and followed the death of George III. His son George IV succeeded him and was succeeded by his brother William. Right, so Jake was ruling through America, Canada, and like the British Isles of the West Indies. And they played a role in the slave trade. They were basically like they had commonwealths. That's why Queen Queen Elizabeth II, I believe, I don't believe she's of the Moorish or the noble bloodline, right? Of the Jews. Right? I believe she's a convert, that that they took up, and they basically, like, like, that's all, she died like a couple of years ago, but you know but it says, the couple and 15 children and followed the death of George III. His son George IV succeeded him and was succeeded by his brother William IV. Edward, the father of Edward, the fourth son, Edward, the fourth son of George III, and Sophia Charlotte, fathered Queen Victoria. Right, so I believe King Edward, they say, um, he's one of the sons of King George. Right, so you know, but they look more pale because some of them, they say that some of them were like they were bleaching their skin back then, just like what they're doing in the islands now, or in America. Jake is bleaching their skin, trying to look white. um so this is Edward, but I'll show you Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria. This is so, like, King George the third, his daughter was Queen Charlotte, who was Moorish blood. Right, so this is how she actually looked. All right. So this is King George's his his uh, his daughter, King George the Third. All right. No, but some of them, they're bleaching their skin. You know? So it says Edward the Fourth, son of George the Third, and Sophia Charlotte fathered Queen Victoria, whose Moorish blood continued to rule the royal throne of England through her son Edward Edward the Seventh of Saxe Coburg Gotha. Right. So I don't know. Uh, I don't know, like, the lineage of the father, if he's a Jake or what, but Jake started mixing, like, with these Edomites. So Edward the Seventh was succeeded by his son, um, George the Fifth, who replaced the German title Saxe Coburg Gotha, the house of to the house of Windsor. Right, so that's why these Edomites, they have the house of Windsor over there in England. And I believe, what's her name? Queen, sorry, not Queen, Princess Margaret and Queen Elizabeth, they're of the House of Windsor. Right. George the Fifth was succeeded by his eldest son Edward the Seventh. Sorry, Edward the Eighth. Edward the Eighth was succeeded by his brother George the Sixth, who was succeeded by his daughter Elizabeth II, the mother of Prince Charles, Andrew, Edward, and Princess Anne, her grandson Prince William and Henry, or Henry, or Harry. Right? So I believe that like that's how these Edomites came into the bloodline. So it said the white peasant blood slowly spilled into the royal Negro Moorish blood following the French Revolution of 1789 AD. Today's Queen Elizabeth IP lineage is traced all the way back from the 10th century Scottish King Kenneth of Dub or Duffy or Duffin or Niger or Black, whose noble bloodline is linked to Kenneth MacAlpin. Right, so they're saying that Queen Elizabeth, that her lineage traces back to the 10th century, which I totally disagree. Right, because I highly doubt that she's of our bloodline, of the Israelite bloodline. All right, I believe she's Edomite. All right, but we will know in the kingdom. The Lord's gonna separate the wheats from the tares. But there's a video I was gonna show of Queen Elizabeth II. How they were living. Sorry, one moment. One second. Queen Elizabeth's II, the wealth. Comes from slavery. How much of the... So I'm gonna play this quick. All right, and I'll get a couple of scriptures. Royal family's wealth comes from slavery. As the world remembers Queen Elizabeth II's reign, many are finding it hard to overlook how the monarchy's global power stems from the slave trade. The crown's wealth is estimated at $28 billion. That includes Buckingham Palace, the crown jewels, huge areas of land across the UK, and some prime London real estate. But exactly how much of this money hails from the slave trade? The 1562 journey of John Hawkins, the first English person known to have included enslaved Africans in his cargo, was signed off by Queen Elizabeth I. Yeah, and that's what they try to show you, these images of these Edomites, that were so-called kings and queens. But Jake was still empowered, during the Middle Ages, and then going into the whole 18 and 1900s, man. Invaded Jamaica in 1655, the Royal African Company was set up under royal charter by Charles II to manage the West African slave trade. The Royal African Company was set up by the Stuarts, and they played a role in the stocks of the slave trade, right? That's why we eventually fell. They were known as the Royal Africa Company as a corporation, and basically you had the Jake that was being sold throughout West Africa, and Fort Judah, Fort Benjamin or Benin, where the slaves were sold. Right, it was a major profit. Let's get that precept. Joel 3 and 3. And they cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine that they might drink. Right. So Jake, the Royal Africa Company, that was set up by the Stuarts, right? They had shares, right? So that's why I said that eye is going to be in Deuteronomy 28. Thy eye shall be evil toward thy brother, right? Right. So Jake, our people did play a major role in the transatlantic slave trade. Yea, and what have you to do with me, O Tyre and Zion? So these Hamites, and all the coast of Palestine. Right now, the people in Palestine now they're known as the original Palestinians were the Philistines, but now the people in Palestine now they're known as Ishmaelites. Right, they played a major role in the slave trade too, known as the Arab slave trade. You know, which was even more brutal. Will you render me a recompense? And if you recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return a recompense upon your own head? Because you have taken my silver and my gold and have carried into your temple my goodly pleasant thing. And that's what they did. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold to the Grecians. So the southern tribe, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, and the Jerusalem, the northern tribe, right? They were sold, right, through the transatlantic slave trade. Have you sold to the Grecians that ye might remove them far from the border? Behold, I will raise them out of the place where ye have sold them, and I will return a recompense upon your own head. And I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabians, or the Sabians were you Ethiopians, Somalians, to a people far off, for the Lord has spoken it. So there's going to be a slave trade, man, right? Because the people in England, they're living very fat off of our people's wealth. Esau, he's living very luxurious right now, man. Right? Because a lot of these chariots and these cities and these mansions and whatever, they were set up by our people.
To ship more African people to the Americas than any other single institution ever. Kensington Palace, Hampton Court Palace, and all the other palaces dating back to the 17th century were to some extent funded by the slave trade. Before Prince William and Kate landed in Jamaica earlier this year, more than 100 public figures signed an open letter calling on the British government and the royal family to apologize.
Yeah, which the girl, I believe, Prince William or Henry and his wife, I forgot her name, but basically her mother is Jamaican and their father is an Edomite.
Yeah. It's complex to calculate, but various estimated figures are staggering. Suggesting Britain owes $9.7 trillion to Caribbean countries, $11.9 trillion to African countries, and $44.6 trillion to India. So while it's hard to tell just how much of the royal family's wealth comes from slavery, it quite literally built the roofs over their heads. How much of the royal family's wealth comes...
Yeah, so this is how these people are living, huh? Alright, they're living very fat. That's why these Edomites, they're going to go down, man. Someone, I think somebody posted it. Job 9 says, Job 9, the 24th, the earth is given to the hand of the wicked. He covered the face of the judge there, man. That's what they did. Alright. So what page is this I'm going to get now? Yeah, page 17. Very good book. And I'm still reading it, but it has a lot of great information, man. I got it from from Howard. Very good book. So it says, page 17, the House of Alpin, the second paragraph. The following rulers of Scotland, regardless of their blood connection with Kenneth Mac Alpin, Mac just means son. It says it's a politically selected other dynasty title on the House of Duncan, House of Canmore, the House of Ballot, the House of Bruce, right, and the House of Stuart. The House says the Moorish House of Stuart continues to rule the both Scotland and England 1603 AD until it was succeeded 17 to 14 AD by the German rule and bloodskin of the Stuart called the Hanoverians. Right? So it was a like transition of power, right? But they're still connected, right? But the so-called Hanoverian, they took over, right? So George the First, George the Second, George the Third, and the Fourth, right? No, they call it interracial. They call it cross cousin marriages, and basically that's what we're gonna have in the kingdom, you know, because Esau fucked up everything, man. But it says the Moorish House of Stuart called the royal continued to rule both Scotland and England in 1603 AD until it was succeeded in 1714 AD by the German rule and bloodskin of the Stuarts called the Hanoverians. Page 18. The dynasty was succeeded by Saxe-Coburg of Gotha dynasty in Germany in 1840 by the same people of the German Hanoverian dynasty. All right, so Jake was ruling throughout Germany. In 1917, the dynasty was renamed the House of Windsor that exists to this day. So that's what they did. All right, these are Edomite that basically like usurped the throne, and they have these commonwealths. That's why the guy now in power after his mother died is King George. I think he calls himself the third or whatever. No, this is a Edomite, man. It says when James the Stewart the sixth/first Scotland became England's first Scottish ruler, he was also of the Moorish Negro lineage, as was every male king of the bloodline of Kenneth the Niger or Dub. All right, so Jake was in power, man. They were, for a long time. That whole lineage continued for a long time. And his forefather Kenneth MacAlpin, right? So like they were kings of Scotland. Kenneth MacAlpin was also called the Niger Val Dub. The name Malalpin was applied to the Kenneth MacAlpin descendants of Kenneth MacAlpin descendants and siblings. So what else is there? Very, very good book. A lot of good information. I'm going to get that. Ecclesiastes 10 and 7. Let's get that. The book of Ecclesiastes 10, verse 7. It says, 6, follow is set in great dignity, and the rich sit in low place. So we're in the lower state as a nation, man. Right? That's why these people are in power. So I've seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon earth. That's what they did. Right? They're in higher power, and we don't have power, man. That's exactly what it is. But I'm gonna get page 25. Page 25. says the Negro, Kenneth, pure Negro Moorish blood continues to flow in the vein of Scottish and British rulers. Queen Elizabeth II, the mother of Prince Charles, Andrew Edward, and Prince Anne, and grandson of Prince William and Henry, or Harry, are descendants of the Kenneth the Niger, the royal King Kenneth the Niger in the 29th century, in the 29th great grandsons of the Elizabeth II. So they're trying to say that their lineage goes back to that I guess Kenneth the Niger in the whole 10th century, which is a lie. But it says Western academics Malcolm siblings and many preceded kings. Western academics continues to downplay Kenneth the Niger, black, for several reasons. The military skill supervised his great great grandfather Kenneth MacAlpin Niger Val Aldub, his audience to the rest of the outside invaders, including the family members to the United to unite Scotland, and his African Alpine Negro Moorish blood that flows in the vein of today's European Royal Scotland, the House of Windsor, who have genetically bleached themselves white, are descendants of Kenneth the Niger. So that's what they're trying to do, right? But these are not the the noble. They're not the original nobles. So what page I was gonna get? Yeah, page 26. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So so there's a scripture that one of the brothers posted. Sons, the songs of songs. 1 verse 15. I am black, but come ye daughters of Jerusalem, the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. So Solomon was very dark. That's exactly, man. So the whitewash, the hijack, what Esau put on the world now, calling themselves nobles and princes and kings. The original black nobility were our people. We're the original nobles. Yeah. But this is a very good book to get. You could buy it as a PDF, or you could buy it. Very good book, The Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isles, by Dr. John L. Johnson. Very good book, very good read. I'm still reading it. Got it from one of the brothers I borrowed from Howard, Prince of Howard. Very good information. So so with that, I'd like to say all praise is due unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakwadash, double honors apostle of great millstone. Peace and blessings to the elect. Shalom.